Hello, this is the costume that I made for the OTK IRL Transmog competition. I called it Skullwitch by the end, but it's a Warlock outfit of the TR8 Ulduar, mostly. For the video, I've separated it into four parts. So there's the hat, the shoulders, the robe, and the staff, and each one will have pictures that I took during making it, progress pictures, and then a short video of when it's finished. Starting with the hat, I cut out the circle for the brim and I tried to use the weights to bend it, but it's 3mm EVA foam, so it just flopped back into place. It was much too floppy. I made the cone, taped it up, and then glued it all in place, and it held the cone quite well, even though it is quite floppy material because it's only 3mm. But I quickly gave up on trying to mold the 3mm into shape. I put a PVA glue layer over it and then painted it up with the airbrush that you see in the bottom there. And I just did it all in black because the color is on these strips, which are fabric patches. In this picture, you can see I've got tabs of foam cut out stuck to it for the stitching. I decided they stand out a bit too much. They don't look like thread like they're supposed to be. It's like an animated sort of thread. I changed it to paint. I gouged a bit of the fabric foam out of to make a wee channel and then painted over it. The inside, I've got the same purple velvet lining there for the forehead. The inside's not painted. The outside is painted black with the gold buckle to match the shoulders color, and that brown strip at the bottom is supposed to be leather. It's got a couple notches out of it to try out that age effect, but I didn't put much time into that. At the end, I wanted the brim to be standing up and then down on the side so it would fit between the shoulders, but as you can see, it just bends back into place slowly. This here is the foam that it's made of. I got this from the Warbler store, an actual cosplay shop, so it's really dense, good quality stuff. I thought maybe that'd help it hold shape, but it really didn't. The mask was never part of the outfit. I was always planned to have the hat, but it was small and easy enough to do, so I made one. I actually don't like it because it's kind of Cyclops. The hood is supposed to come down past the top, so you can't really see the top of the upper notch. The shoulders I drew and measured up with Vivid on the 10mm foam, which is just from a hardware store. It's not cosplay foam, it's just $10 for four pieces. I gouged it out with a Dremel, trying to keep it on one piece rather than layering more foam on top to get the height and depth. I try to keep it one piece so that there's no cuts and joins. I gouged out the backs and then bent them and used weights to hold them in place while the glue set to get the shaping. The shaping worked much better on the shoulders because it's 10mm and less dense than the cosplay foam. I painted it all with gesso, which is an art preparation. It sort of does the same thing as PVA layer, seals it all in, gets it ready for painting. I glued together the pieces of the shoulders, and then I went over it in white, and then I went over it in a metallic, and then I planned to go over the metallic in a gold leaf in much lighter strokes just to tint it. These pieces are supposed to be like an orangey brass, but they ended up being much more gold because that's all I had. I didn't have a orangey tinted paint to use, so I just went with the gold. I think it looks okay. It's not as orange as it's supposed to be, but it's okay. The shoulders I think could have done with more of the grunge layer of paint just to get the aged, more like the shoulder, the wrists, skulls. They'd be more grungy, old looking. The shoulders are attached to a foam piece that goes over the shoulders, and then this mantle part of fabric is glued onto that shoulder part. You can see the 5mm foam from the shoulder there runs along behind the neck to the other shoulder. So it's a full one-piece mantle that you just put on over your head. This fabric runs underneath and then around the top, and then this hanging part here is a separate piece that I added later. It's just for detail. The cloth doesn't hold the shoulder together. It was all stuck together before the cloth, and then the cloth was put over top as detail. It's glued in place on the shoulder itself just to hold it in position. This foam is squishier than dedicated cosplay foam. It's much cheaper, but it's less dense, which is the difference between the prices. You wouldn't be able to squeeze it like that. And this stuff comes with this pattern on the back. You can see it's just sheets. I think it's 4 of these sheets for 20 something. I can't remember. This piece I made for the back of the head, but the helmet's not part of the cosplay, so I didn't actually end up making it. But it would go here. It'd just glue onto the back of the mantle and sit there perfectly. This is the beginning of the Guldan staff, the big skull on the front. I drew it all on in Vivid off a printout and then gouged it out with the Dremel. I painted it up with the gesso to seal it all in, made the skull that goes on top, and then the teeth like this downwards. I later threw these teeth out because they were flat, not 3D. See, they stick out straight down, the shape of a dog muzzle. They come outwards and then down, not straight out like this. The horns aren't stuck on here yet. I just made them, and I was just imagining how they fit into the back of the skull. The beginning of the staff, I had a rod and then cut out the shapes of the curving and glued it all together with dowels in the middle holding it together. I used the Dremel to sand it down. It worked pretty well. Just sanded it all down into shape, nice and smooth, rounded, and then I stuck the I cut the pieces out in advance and then stuck them onto the staff. After I bent the pieces around the staff, they came out a bit short. They didn't stick over the entirety of the wood, so they flare outwards. And then there's a piece over the back of the staff there as well. You can see here the corner sticking out there. On the actual model, the flaring part sticks out further than the back of the staff, but it looks pretty good. Not perfect, but it does look good. It's supposed to be a lighter color, more like a blue. And then if I'd done that, I would have been able to do more highlights and dark lights, but I'm not that good at painting, so I just went with straight black and then the red highlights in there where they're supposed to be. The LEDs were pretty standard fare, just wired it up, stuck them in, glued it in place. I did hide the battery behind a piece of cloth that velcroed to the skull. I thought it was a pretty good way to make the batteries replaceable. I did have to think for a while about how to put the batteries in them, where to put it in. Do I cover it with a piece of foam so that they're sealed in there and it's inside the skull? Overall, I think the stuff came out pretty good. I did finish making this outfit on the 30th here, so that'd be the 29th for America. So right before the deadline, so I didn't have time to put on a lot of the rings and beads. I had them there, as there's a couple of them on there, and the string for it I didn't have time to make the small skulls. They're kind of like shrunken voodoo head looking skulls, and they've got the hair on the back of the skulls that goes down, and then there's the red beads on them. I might come back and add those later on just to fill out the staff. There's the Velcro. You can see the battery pack in there. I think it's a much better solution than putting them inside the skull because I can replace them when they die. I do like the way the staff turned out at the head of the staff. These horns connect straight onto the wood. I might cover them with cloth, the same way I did here, where I've connected the pre-made circular wood with the wood that I cut out. The back looks really good. The clay at the bottom that I used for smoothing is a bit cracked, so I'll have to repaint it. You can see the white pieces there because it's white clay. Here's the bottom part where I've covered the join with cloth. So if I do that around the horns, I think it'll be tidier. It does need more beads and skulls though. I didn't take any progress pictures of sewing up the robes, but it was fairly straightforward. I'm not I haven't done much sewing, but it was okay. It's not the tidiest it could be around some of the joins, but I'm sure I'll get better. The robe is in three parts. There's the under robe, the mantle, and then this part here. The belt part was supposed to be a chain, but I made it into the rope like cinch tightening for pants. And then this tabard is sewed into here. There's the join there. It's just a small stitch on either side. On the back, it went straight across and it left the visible line across the front and it didn't look good, so I kept it down to these small pieces. It's a learning progress, right? And then the bottom part doesn't go all the way to the top. It comes about halfway up the upper there. There's the stitch there. So it doesn't come all the way up to the top and it doesn't have a stitch all the way across, so there's not a big dirty line like the seam up the side, which is fine. But having one horizontally across there, all the way across, would just look terrible, I think. It makes it harder to put on because there is sagging parts on the inside between the stitches, but it looks fine on the outside, and that's what matters. This velvet is supposed to be the lighting effect. I wasn't sure how to do it. I put the velvet all the way up the inner sleeve, up to the shoulder on the top, and then maybe up to the knee on the bottom, up about here. You can see the top is loose because I didn't want to stitch across again. So there's just a stitch here, a gap, a stitch here, a gap, a stitch here. So it sags a bit, but it's inside, so it doesn't matter. The cloth is, I think it's some kind of felt. Don't hold me to that though. The lower part and the mantle are this polyester cotton, which is actually super cheap. It's $4 a meter as opposed to 12 for the other stuff. So it's like 3 times cheaper. And it actually looks better. If I could do it again, I'd do the whole lot in the poly cotton. So much better. I'd also try something else for the purple because it didn't really come through in the big picture. Maybe I did consider bleaching the ends of the robe and then dyeing it in purple because it's got that streaky effect, or maybe painting it on, but I didn't want to do those because they'd be really hard to keep control of, and I didn't want to have a discoloring between the black and the bleaching part. We'll see. I'll try something different next time. I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun to make, and definitely going to keep making things. It's kind of my hobby now, and if I keep this up, I'll end up with a room full of cool stuff. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and definitely try making things for yourself. It's not that hard. It is pretty time consuming, but I listen to an audiobook while I work. It passes the time, do something with my hands, be creative. It's a lot of fun. You should try it. And you'll end up with a room full of cool stuff at the end too.